A pleasant good evening to you, and welcome in to the season debut of the PressProsMagazine.com Huddle Show. I'm Bruce Hooley. That gentleman sitting next to me is Mr. Sonny Folks, and we will be joined as soon as I click on his lovely picture by Tim Beckman, the four-time state championship coach of the St. Henry Redskins. Mr. Folks, do you have anything to say before we welcome Coach Beckman to the festivities?
We got a little business to do, because here we are. I'm back. First time in how many months? I don't remember when we last were here at Skynet, at their studios in downtown Piqua. And we'll do a little business by reminding people that if you live out in the country and you need rural internet service and better than what you have now, sorry about my voice cracking, but give Skynet a call at 773-0998 in downtown Piqua. If you live in the country, you're trying to find some decent internet. I found out recently they will make house calls late on Saturday night when you lose power altogether. So they were there and got us back online for Press Pros within minutes. But if you work from home, if you got kids that need better homework internet, give them a call. Greg Grissom, Mike Grissom, downtown Piqua, Skynet, better way in West Central Ohio for you to find solutions and options for better internet in your home or business. And we certainly appreciate the use of their studio in downtown Piqua.
Fantastic. Well, with that said, let's welcome in the former head coach of the St. Henry Redskins.
There he is.
Mr. Tim Beckman, and we'll ask you, can you screen down a little bit so we can see more of you and less of your ceiling? There you go. Perfect. Welcome to the show.
Good evening, gentlemen. It's exciting to be back, and it's definitely time for football.
And life is full of ironies, isn't it? Because it just seems like I saw you 2 hours ago in my house.
Just for some reason, I think we did. Had to pick up some peaches, by the way.
Something like that. Yes, there's always something.
Yes.
There is always something. It's a reason to get together. And football is the topic here this weekend. And Bruce, I think each of us saw a pretty interesting football game on Friday night. And I honestly, I told people last week I would live long enough now, I'm convinced, to see us play high school football on the 4th of July. We haven't quite got it there that early yet, but I was amazed at how many people were out in force, how many people read over the weekend. Our coverage of Marion Local, Wapakoneta, your coverage of high school football there, Bruce, in Central Ohio. And Tim, I know you were pretty pleased with the way St. Henry came out and played against St. Mary's, but people were out there. They're ready for it. They're all lathered up and ready to go. So we got to get up to speed.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I saw great games, Henry and St. Mary's. And you're going to that ball game and two schools of great tradition and so forth. And defensively, I was amazed what St. Henry did and shut down the wing T the way they did. Held them below 100 yards rushing. And got great play out of the sophomore quarterback as the game progressed. He got better and better. And, I really think St. Henry's a work in progress, and it could be really interesting to see some progresses for them.
All right. First of all, I got to know, am I the only one hearing feedback when I talk or when Coach Beckman talks?
I hear nothing.
I'm hearing feedback also.
Okay. You are Kim?
Yes. From you. That's Sonny.
Okay. I don't know what that's about. I apologize. I hope that our viewers can hear us okay. Let's just confront the elephant in the room that concerns St. Henry. They won Friday night with Brad Luthman not coaching. I don't want to put you in a tough spot, Coach. Sonny, can you say, has there been a determination yet made whether Coach will be coaching this Friday, or will you tell the people about Coach Luthman's situation?
Best information I have, it was for 1 week. He will be back on the sideline with him this Friday.
Yes, he's definitely back. Everything's taken care of, and they're back at it.
Okay. Good to know. Who did St. Henry have this week?
St. Henry's had Archbold, which is going to be a great test for them. And see where they stand. Archbold is a very, very good football team. Division 5, been a playoff contender the last few years. And they have to travel up there. So it's going to be a real challenge for them and we'll see where they stand and hopefully show some improvement.
Coach, let me ask you this. One of the things that has been in my mind, and this is just an impression. I don't know that anybody has come out and said this to me, But when I talk to coaches, when I talk to parents, when I talk to players during the course of the summer, I got the impression that football is young everywhere. Everybody is talking about numbers. They're talking about kids that aren't playing that maybe have played in the past, surprised they're not playing now. You hear it over and over about, I sure wish I had this kid, that's walking the hall that would be out playing football, and he's not. And, it's going to take a while for football to kind of come up to speed this year. Can you comment on that, or do you have any sense of that from your own experience in the neighborhood?
I agree with you 100%, Sonny, that you're seeing, again, I guess what you're seeing more so in schools of our size, schools we're talking about, is you're not getting as many kids to play 3 sports. It's just with the summer and demand upon these kids in the summertime that's on these kids and so forth. And you're getting to the point where I don't want to say it's impossible, but it really makes it difficult for a young man to be able to play 3 sports. And you're seeing that. You're seeing, in some cases, some smaller rosters. In some cases, you're seeing very large rosters. It's just a matter of the situation and the school system you're in and so forth. But, yeah, things have changed over the years. There's no doubt about that.
Culture's got something to do with this, too, because in your wildest dreams, when you were coaching and winning titles in the 90s, did you ever believe that, your H-back would say, I think I'm just going to work and make $9 flipping pizzas or something rather than playing football? It just seems like if I'm going to spend the time, I ought to get $9 an hour for it. That wasn't the way back 25 years ago.
No, you talk about culture, and culture has definitely changed, and it's people talk about athletes and how they've changed, and we've talked about this quite a bit, and I don't know so much as the kids have changed as much as the parents have changed, and it's a reflection down onto the young men and young ladies that are playing, and you just don't have that support at home. I don't think as much as you've had in the past. In some cases, it makes it very difficult for these young men and young ladies to go out and want to participate and be a part of something. In a lot of cases, you hear, "Well, I'm not going to play, so I'm not going to be on the team. I'm not going to start. I don't want to play. I don't want to sit on the bench." But you've got those roles for those kids in that learning process. And it just seems like so many kids don't want to wait their turn, as I say, as we talk about back in the day and so forth, and learn from the experience. I've got a freshman grandson on the team this year, and I've got a senior on the team here at St. Henry. I tell my freshmen, I said, when you're in that locker room, when you're at practice, watch, learn, and listen. That's very important. And it's just so many of these younger people don't want to do that. Just want to jump right in. They want to be able to play, and it just doesn't work that way in a lot of situations.
A month ago, back in July, he said he was concerned. He said, "Hey, look, kids don't like to do that kind of work anymore if they're not guaranteed either a start or a significant role on the field on Friday night." And he said it's the first words out of their mouth when they come in to talk to me in the spring or the summer during lifting. "Coach, am I going to be playing this year? Where and how much?"
Yeah, you're just hearing more and more of that. And as I said, it's really sad. And again, I think a lot of it goes back to home and parents not wanting to support their kids through hard times. And, again, and then there's so many different things you can do outside of that. And there's club teams you can be on, and you can go to this and that. And they all make you feel like you're the best. And then when you get back to that home school, it's a little bit different sometimes. So yeah, it's a changing environment out there. There's no doubt about that.
So let's talk about one young man who waited his turn and Friday night reaped the benefits of that. The quarterback at Marion Local. Sonny, you wrote him in your game story, and you wrote about him in Who's Hot. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the next man under center for Coach Tim Goodwin and what he was able to do Friday night at Wapak?
Well, first of all, his name is Justin Knopf. He is a junior. I guess he did play a little bit last year, but I didn't see them play all 13 games or 15 games that they played last year. So somehow he escaped my notice. But here's a youngster that just comes out. Tim, you saw him a week ago in a scrimmage and said, they didn't look very good. And there was seemingly no consensus about who was going to play quarterback, if at all. And then suddenly he comes out the other night and he just takes command, control of the situation, goes out, throws the ball 22 times, connects on 13 of them for 250 yards, throws a couple of touchdowns, had a couple of picks, but, just cool under fire. He didn't look like a first-time starter. Now, I don't know if there's a pill you can take for that, if there is a tablespoon of something you can take for that. I don't know. It wasn't around when I played, and I didn't play football, but it wasn't available for baseball. But this youngster, Justin Knopf, looked like the guy who's going to keep people awake on Thursday nights, all season, if you got to play them on Friday, because he can run, he can throw. You're down 12 points with 5 minutes to go against a really good Wapakoneta team. I want to make that distinction because we got a lot of emails over the weekend. What's Marion like? What are they going to have? Who's going to be their quarterback? Was Wapakoneta good? How could they lose when you're up 12 with 5 minutes to go? I'm telling you, Travis Moyer is a good football coach, and he's got a good football team at Wapakoneta. And I couldn't answer any of those questions except to say Justin Knopf was very cool for the last 5 minutes, led 2 scoring drives, and put a ball right on the numbers. 4th down and 12, game on the line with 50 seconds left to go, and he got it done. So, Bruce, to answer your question, I walked up to him after the game. I said, young man, I have never seen you. I've never heard of you. I'm just terribly impressed with what I just saw for the last 48 minutes, the way you played football. And he just said, thanks. He said, I'll be around.
I said, I'm sorry. I'm trying to play fast and loose here with our mic switches to minimize the feedback. I said, he didn't say to you, old man, I've never seen you either, did he?
Man, I've never seen you either. He was delightful to talk to. And, Tim, because you and I have talked, 3 or 4 times over the weekend about that particular game, the ups and downs in that game. And when you're down 12, you've lived this. You've coached this. You're down 12 points with 5 minutes left to go with a team, that really wants to send you packing. It's hard to keep kids from sneaking off and getting on the bus when you're down 12 with 5 minutes left to go. And somehow, Tim Goodwin does it all the time, but, Tim can't play. You got to have kids out there who want to play. And Justin said to my question, he said, I was just trying to keep heads up in the huddle and let guys know that we've been through this before. We can do this.
That's a tribute to that culture that Tim has developed at Marion Local. And those kids believe, and they're never out of a football game, and they believe they can win every game every Friday night. They believe they can win every play. And if they don't get discouraged. They just go back to the huddle. They keep their heads up and they keep playing. That's what championship teams are all about. You talked about the young quarterback, and I heard about him through the scrimmages, and it sounds like he's gotten better and better and better. And that's what it's all about. And I'm seeing the same thing here, not to change the subject, the same thing here at St. Henry, going with a sophomore quarterback. I saw some 7-on-7s. I saw the scrimmages and I saw the first game, and I saw a young man grow a great deal there. And again, it's just all about him believing in what you're doing, coaching that takes place in the off season, and putting good people around you and keeping encouragement, and Tim does such a great job with that at Marion Local. That team is solid. They're deep. They come up as it seems like every year there's somebody that comes out of nowhere to play a big part on that team. It looks like this year it's going to be that young quarterback, and we'll see where he develops and where he goes to.
The other thing is you've never seen Tim Goodwin with his hair on fire. Okay. And I think the kids look at that and see his example on the sidelines. Yeah, he's been there 25 years. Yeah, he's won all those games. But I think they look over. He hasn't won them with them. And I think they look over and see how cool he is, and hey, we'll figure this out. And you live that after a period of time.
Yeah, exactly. I had a chance to watch a replay of part of that game this weekend on WOSN, and I did see the end of the ball game. And they had just things happen for them. That onside kick. I mean, it just took that perfect bounce, and that second bounce went right through receiver or the tight end from Wapakoneta, and what a tough play for him, and just get kicked up on him and right to the Marion guy. And, but they're so well coached and they're ready for those situations. And that's a tribute to what that staff does at Marion Local.
Let's turn our attention a little bit to Minster. And Brogan Stephey, their quarterback, is not a surprise to anybody. He had 6 touchdowns in their win over Fort Loramie. I would assume, we haven't talked about this, Sonny, but I would assume Fort Loramie will be in our crosshairs again this week because they're playing host to Versailles. Ryan Jones looks like he's got a nice team back at Versailles. But I couldn't help but notice when I was scanning the schedules for who we might be covering this week, beyond this week, next Friday night, Marion Local plays Minster.
Well, yeah, and I think that's going to be a big test, first of all, for both teams. Now, you can sit out there and say, well, you say that all the time about Marion Local, and Marion Local just runs the table. They've won 33 games consecutively now. Yeah, they've got a win streak. But they haven't won 33 straight against teams that's willing to throw it 50 times. And I've said this forever. Coach, you can agree, disagree, because you have played football with a quarterback that's capable of throwing the ball 40, 50 times and putting points up on the board like Stephey can do for Minster. I don't think anybody at any level of football can defend the forward pass without making a mistake for 4 quarters with that kind of pressure of the ball being out of his hand quickly, and you got 5 receivers running loose down there in the secondary. Someone's going to fall down. Someone's going to make a mistake. Someone on the offense is going to make a big play. And those are the teams that can give to even the best teams like Marion Local and St. Henry back in the 90s, give them fits on a night when, you can't practice that during the week. You just have to come out and know it's there, and you might have to face it.
That's the most difficult thing. What you just stated is you can't practice that during the week, and you got to adapt to that as the game progresses. And facing a passing team like Minster and a quarterback like that, and also he's a very, very good runner, and that team has excellent speed on the outside, and that could turn into a real track meet because their big question mark, the way it sounds like, is defense on the Minster side of the ball, on the defensive side. So it'd be interesting when it comes to that game 3. But getting back to this, to Brogan Stephey and Minster, that's a team that we've talked about it this whole preseason. They're going to be a pain, as I say, for a lot of teams, and you got to prepare for them. And that's very, very difficult to prepare for a team like that with that passing attack.
Now, speaking of a team that will throw it, maybe not 50 times, but maybe 50 times, and a team that saw someone throw it 60 times this past week, the team that will throw it probably 50 times if they have to is Bellefontaine, and the team that handled an opponent that threw it 60 times this past week was Coldwater against Kenton, and Coldwater plays host to Bellefontaine on Friday night. And while all eyes will be on Tavian St. Clair, the Bellefontaine quarterback, who is an Ohio State commit, Coldwater must have a little something at quarterback. And Balin Blockberger, I believe it is, and Cody DePueg had a 92-yard touchdown run last week. And they had a young man kick 3 field goals, which is a school record at Coldwater. They were all under 30 yards, but they count for 3 each, no matter how far they are. So, fellas, what do we think Chip Otten has up his sleeve this year?
Well, I'll tell you, I know the Blockberger family a little bit. I know Balin is a very, very good athlete, and he's one of them kids, again, is going to get better and better as the season progresses in that position. He's got some great weapons on the outside in the Hardiments who can run and catch the football, and Cody DePueg is a very nice running back, great size. So, they're going to score some points. There's no doubt about that. The challenge this week with Bellefontaine, wow, that's a great ball game to have early in the year, and to play a team like that, you're going to find out where you stand real quick. So that'll be a very, very interesting ball game, and Chip's going to have him ready. Heck, we all know that he's a solid coach, and that program's not going to back down from everybody. And that's going to be a great ball game Friday night.
My answer is this. I don't know anybody who has a better staff than Chip does at Coldwater. And when I say that, those guys have all been there a long time, like Tim has, Goodwin has at Marion Local. They've been together a long time. They trust each other. And I guarantee you that Chip has all the confidence in the world that those individual coaches, are going to get their kids ready to play. So, he can handle all the big decisions during the game, but he doesn't have to worry about everybody knowing what their assignment is. Do your job. Everybody talks about do your job. I think that's going to be a huge asset for Coldwater going in. Is they're not going to be blown out of the water. They're not going to lose the game before they play it. They're going to go in there prepared, an idea, a game plan in mind of what you have to do with Tavian St. Clair to be ready to play, to compete. And, we've all seen Coldwater fall behind before. And I don't know anybody, maybe besides Marion Local, that makes better halftime adjustments to come out in the second half and give themselves a chance. That's what I expect to see. I really think this will be a very competitive game. It's going to be one of our feature games this week. And I'm going to go there expecting to see Coldwater football, regardless of how young they are or how much they've played previously.
Yeah, there's no doubt. As you stated, they're going to be very prepared. And what about the staff, as you said, Chip's got things he can concentrate on, make those game time decisions. He can defense. He has an excellent defensive coordinator who's going to have that defense ready to play. And the good thing about that's fortunate for them, Urbana's going to throw the football, or Bell Fountain, excuse me, is going to throw the football a lot. But Coldwater also practices against that in practice. So those kids will be prepared from that aspect. And they know how to play defense, and they know what a passing game's about. So it's going to be a really, really excellent ball game. That's going to be a great game for us to cover.
Now, or throw it as much as they have in the past. They're going to run the ball 80% of the time, and that comes from the horse's mouth. So there'll be some ball control. There'll be some clock management. There'll be some take your shots at the right time and when it's propitious for you to do it. And nobody's better than that than Chip.
Exactly.
Well, I had the privilege of covering that matchup last year at Bell Fountain, and that was the debut really of Marcel Blasingame as a big time runner and thrower. He single-handedly, as much as any player can, won that game for Coldwater, and really played much better than Tavian St. Clair. Now, St. Clair has size and the big arm and the hype and all that, and I'm sure he has improved dramatically since last season when he was still a very good player. So he'll be a tougher challenge for Coldwater this year. Coach, before we transition over to the Buckeyes and bring on our Press Pros Magazine beat writer Jeff Gilbert, do you have anything else you want to talk about tonight?
Just want to mention, we talked about some MAC teams. Another team we haven't mentioned much is Anna. And I know Sonny and I have talked about them, but that's a team had some excellent young players last year. And I think they're, again, going to be one of those teams, kind of like Minster, that could be that team that week in and week out, you better prepare. And I'm really looking forward to the game in week 3 where Anna and St. Henry meet. And I think that'll be a real telltale of those two programs, where they're going and what direction they're going. I believe Anna, Sonny, they have Brookville this week?
Brookville. Yep.
Yeah.
Brookville.
So that'll be an excellent ball game for them and kind of see where they stand and so forth. And then you also throw in Versailles. I heard a lot of good about Michael Osborne on the weekend playing quarterback for Versailles. And, they got they're very well coached. They do a great job over there. And there's a lot of teams that I think are kind of on that verge. I know not at that Marion Local level yet, but there's teams with young quarterbacks and teams that are going to get better as the year progresses. I think there's going to be some excellent football in the MAC again this year.
It's my pick as a dark horse because you don't think of Anna as a football team. I know they won the state championship 3 or 4 years ago when they were just loaded to the gills with talent and speed and size. But you don't think about them because they are not a MAC member for all sports. It's just football. So they're out there in left field, all year long playing in the Shelby County League. But when football season gets here, suddenly they've got all these athletes. They've got a quarterback up there that reminds me a little bit of Bernie Kosar for the way he throws the ball, but he gets it out and he's got size to get it downfield. And I agree with you. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. I agree with you about Versailles. And before we forget about it, let's talk about I-75. Piqua had a devastating loss. I don't care what anybody says about the first game of the season. When Piqua scores 31 points, they're supposed to win. And Lima Sr. scored 36 on them the other night, and people said Piqua looks slow. And I know that that's going to be an issue in their practice this week. They come home with Butler, and people believe that Butler's going to be improved. They're going to challenge some people in the Miami Valley League. Tip had a bad loss in Bellbrook the other night. They come home with Fairborn. Fairborn's a team that you think has got to be a get game in the past because they haven't been good, but they got athletes. They got a different coach. It's going to be a challenge. So Tip's got to show. Milton Union's going to have a tough game with Valley View, and I know their issue is going to be the fact that they have half the roster they had last year because they had so many graduation losses and significant ones. So there's some teams with some things on the line already in week 2.
Well, Coach, we appreciate you joining us tonight. We always look forward to your insight. We'll look forward to having you on a little bit later on in the year, and I always look forward to seeing you personally, if not on state football championship weekend, then on some weekend when I make my way over to MAC country. So always great to see you, Coach.
Sounds great. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Coach. Now let's bring in our OSU football beat writer, Mr. Jeff Gilbert, who joins us from over in the Dayton area. And Mr. Gilbert, what did you learn today from Ryan Day? Still not able to pick a quarterback between Kyle McCord and Devin Brown.
Well, they talked a lot about quarterbacks. I mean, question after question, you know how it goes. And then Coach Knowles came in too, talked about defense. The thing that struck me more than anything out of the whole day was that they must have used the word depth I don't know how many times. And so, you know, you think about last year, that was an issue all over the place. Actually, it was an issue on the front lines at some point. In some positions, it was, do we have enough guys in the front line that are good enough, especially on defense? Now, depth, you know, it's got to be proven through the season to some point. I mean, Ryan Day has said, he talked about, we got good depth here, you know, but in the same time, he says about his quarterback thing, I believe in both of them, but until they play in a game, I really don't know. Well, it's probably true for all positions, but maybe more so for quarterback, I don't know. But that's sort of where I was left thinking, well, okay, they feel good about everything else. I think they feel good about who the quarterback position. They just don't know who it's going to be. And I know we've talked. I mean, Sonny and I have talked, and just other people I talk with. It's kind of like we assume this is going to be McCord, but he came out pretty quickly and said after the scrimmage on Saturday, which was closed, nobody got to go watch. He said, "I took a straw poll with the coaches after the scrimmage, and it was pretty even, you know, down the middle." He brought that back up again. He said, the reason I did it was that's how I saw it. I wanted to see what everybody else thought. And I think we all see that the same way, that it's down the middle right now. Nobody sure. One day it's this guy. The next day it looks like this guy, and it keeps going back and forth. That's what they're saying. I think he made it a point to tell us about that straw poll as a way of backing up what he was saying. Now, I mean, you know, all we have is what he says, and to take him at his word or not, if you want. But that's the message, is that we like both guys. He always talks about he wants somebody to emerge. The question is this somebody hasn't emerged, or are two guys kind of emerging at the same time and he just can't pick? That, I mean, and as he says, once they get on the field, we'll know. And he did say, and he has been asked this question many times, and he brought it out unsolicited today, they both, you know, if this keeps going like this, they'll both probably play when they go to Indiana for the opener.
Well,
That
I
could
would
happen.
believe I would believe at some point psychology has to enter into this, because you guys both know, we've been around sports forever. It wears on you. You're 2 weeks out from your opening game, and both of those quarterbacks need to know they have confidence in me that I can do this job. So he's in an enviable position, obviously, to name a guy. You're my starter, and play your way out of it. You know,
Yeah.
exactly. If you can't handle it, we'll give the other guy a chance. But I think at some point, psychology is a big deal now in sports at all levels, and I think you owe it to somebody to say, "Hey, I got confidence you're going to do it. Now go out and show me that you can't." If that be the case,
Right. And I think I think that's. I mean, he has said, I want to be able to say this. I'm happy to, that's been my goal all along, to be sooner than later to say, this is our guy. And he said, honestly, I can't sit here and say there is a guy yet. And so, that whole psychology thing, he knows those kids really well. He'll know, hopefully he knows how they can handle such a situation. And it could be whoever starts could have a problem with looking over their shoulder, not being sure, especially if he doesn't say, you're my guy today, period.
I would rather.
We don't really know.
I would rather pick my quarterback than let Indiana pick my quarterback. And I just, if you can't simulate in practice and introduce whatever stress you need to make a determination between Kyle McCord and Devin Brown, I don't trust Indiana being a true representative of the most difficult challenges on their schedule. There's nothing you're going to encounter in Indiana that's going to prepare you to play at Notre Dame. Nothing that's going to prepare you to play at Wisconsin. Nothing that's going to prepare you, or not much of what's going to prepare you to play at Michigan. I would rather introduce the adversity that is in my control, and I would pick my guy, and then I would manage the decision that I've made by talking to my backup and telling him he's still in it and whatever. But I would not want, under any circumstances, there to be any uncertainty, or we're going to Indiana and we'll see who plays well and then we'll make a decision. Because on the quarterback position, kicking the can down the road, in my opinion, is always a bad idea.
Well, and I guarantee you, none of the coaches at Georgia are calling the coaches in Indiana and saying, "Hey, what are you guys doing today?" So it didn't work that way. Nobody cares what Indiana thinks.
And you make a good point, Bruce. I mean, he was asked about the old thing about, if you have two quarterbacks, you have none. Do you buy that? And he said, not in this situation do I buy that. I think you make a good point about, don't let Indiana make your decision for you. Make a decision and stick with it. And if whoever he picks just doesn't play well, then really that's that kid that's made the decision for him more than Indiana. And I think I agree. I mean, it'd be by far a much more enviable position to just know what you're doing and have that decision and feel good about it. And he might decide that after Wednesday's practice and tell him. He may not tell us for a while, but he might say something. He might make a decision at that point. I don't know. I don't think it's a good idea to go into the opener saying you're both going to play. But that's certainly not the position you want to be in. But I'm telling you, from what I heard today, if you want to believe it or not, I think it's a distinct possibility. I think it's a distinct possibility. And he did say, we got to do what's best for Ohio State, whatever that means. And, those types of things. He said all the right things. And he just won't say. And he won't make a decision, or he knows, but he doesn't want to say because he wants to keep the competition going, because he thinks that's making him better. I don't know. But this whole thing about the coaches, all the other coaches being kind of split on it, that was an interesting thing to say.
Particularly to you, Bruce. I wish quarterback was my biggest concern about Ohio State football, because it is not. I think they could put a cigar store Indian out there, and if he could catch the snap, he's going to do a representative job of playing quarterback for the Buckeyes. I'm not convinced they can run the football. They couldn't run it last year. They couldn't run it the year before against Michigan when they had opportunities to work the clock, kill the game, run the game down, get out of town with a win any way you could. They could not get that done. Now they've lost their line to the NFL last year. They got a lot of guys playing there significantly for the first time. I wish, frankly, they had shown me more in the past to make me believe the quarterback was the issue. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, like he said today, his two guards that played last year, Jackson and Jones, are in there to start. He did say who the starting tackles would be today if they had to play, and will probably be. He did say Luke Montgomery, the freshman from Philly, is going to play this year. I don't know exactly what that means. If that means he's going to split or he's going to eventually take over, he sees that coming. He hasn't decided on his center yet. But, the left tackle right now is the guy who transferred in from San Diego State. So, to your point, how good, if that's who they had to pick for that spot, nothing against Josh Simmons. I've not seen him play. I don't know if he can handle Big Ten and Notre Dame and Georgia or not, but that's where he's going. So the backs are talented enough to get it done, period. I mean, I think Travion Henderson is super talented and Williams is good too, but you're right. How good is that line going to be in run blocking? I mean, that's the big question. And everybody and he talked about, this guy's competing, these other guys. He did say, we felt real thin about it. A few months have passed, and now it's starting to feel like we got some decent depth there. Okay, decent depth. Does that mean we got a lot of guys the same and nobody's really great, or we got some really good guys and the guys behind them are getting a lot better? I don't know how to read that, but we'll see.
Only problem, because they led the free world last year in big plays given up against Michigan, and it looked like they couldn't stop Marion Local for a while there in the second half. And I think there's defensive issues that have yet to be determined on a game like that, and they're going to, they're not going to know until later in the season again, just like last year. Bruce, your comment, if any?
No.
Well, I look at their schedule, and I'm not sure that it's an ideal schedule to figure out what kind of team you have, because you're starting with a Big Ten game, which you have to win. It's a very winnable game. They're not going to lose at Indiana. I can't ever envision that. But then you get two layups, Youngstown State and Western Kentucky, and then you're Notre Dame on the road, and then it starts to get, pretty tough. Maryland can score points. Purdue's always been a problem on the road for Ohio State, and Penn State at home and at Wisconsin. I just think they have a lot of questions that, to me, are questions I would want to be closer to answering at this point in fall camp than I would be in a position to be figuring them out on the fly.
I would agree. I think the schedule sets up kind of tough. I mean, you got to go to Notre Dame, you got to go to Wisconsin, you got to go to Michigan, and Maryland can score, and all the things you just said. And, you have to figure the defense is going to be better. But, back to what Ryan said, until you see it on the field, you don't really know. It's hard to imagine that. I mean, Knowles said today, they say so much stuff, it's hard to remember everything. And it's like, man, how much can you write? But he did say that last year, he admitted there was a little bit of a humility in what he said of like, I had to grow. I had to realize some things, like everything I've tried to do, the things I wanted to come in here and do, maybe weren't the right things to try to do, which put them in some of those binds where they gave up those big plays, just some defensive calls, some alignments that they tried, things they wanted to try to put some pressure, maybe at not the right time. There was one big play, one of those big plays in one of those games was like, they brought the house, remember? I can't remember which game it was, and they got burned deep. And it's like, why did you do that there? You didn't need to do that. You weren't the game wasn't on the line. You didn't need to do that. And so, for their sake, if he's learned some stuff about how to deal with that in those situations and not try to do everything just the way he wants to do it, that could help. He did say Sonny Styles is a starter, period. Sonny's going to be the versatile guy. He's going to be that guy who can play 11, 12, 13 personnel and stay on the field and guard and cover whatever comes out of the backfield his direction. So that's an interesting thing. He's super young, inexperienced. We'll see what he does. But that was an interesting thing he said today too.
Well, it's what I find interesting about Ryan Day is it feels to me like he's searching for answers on defense. Because when I look at his first team at Ohio State that went all the way to the college football playoff and lost an epic semifinal to Clemson, Jeff Hafley was his defensive coordinator for that 1 year, and Ryan Day was committed to single high safety. Mm-hmm. And they played single high safety all year in three corners. They had Sean Wade and Jeff Okuda and Damon, the kid that went to the Raiders, and
Arnett.
Damon Arnett's been off in all kinds of trouble off the field. Now you got Jim Knowles, who those plays you alluded to last year against Michigan and Georgia apparently plays no high safety because they had like nobody deep on some of those plays that Donovan Edwards got loose and some of those plays that Georgia got loose. So I don't know if Ryan Day has a defensive philosophy that he's committed to. He seems like a guy who loves tinkering with his offensive weapons, and that's fine. He's quite enamored with his offensive weapons, and he should be because he's got some great ones. But I ultimately think that it is a rare football season that does not at some point in time come down to getting 3rd and 2 or stopping 3rd and 2. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure they're good enough, physical enough to do that. And they might not have to do it until they get into the playoff, but eventually you're going to have to do it.
Well, that's what's going to be the proof in the end. This team, are they a contender for winning the whole thing? Yeah, I mean, they got talent all over the place. I mean, they got in the playoff last year. They can certainly get in it this year. But it really doesn't matter what you do against some of these other teams. It's what is this team building to and what can it do on the last day of the season, a Big Ten title game if they get in it, and obviously a playoff. That's what they have to build for. Those are the, you can get excited about a lot of stuff. And, last year, what did we hear? We kept, and we felt that way a little bit like, the defense looks better than last year. But when the rubber met the road, so to speak, it really wasn't.
They were the road and everybody else was the rubber.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So before we let you go, Gibby, I want to go around the horn and I want everybody to give me, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being fantastic, 1 being lousy, what you think of the newly constituted Big Ten with USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon that will start play next season. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 is great, 1 is lousy. Jeff Gilbert, what do you give the 2024 Big Ten Conference?
Well, that's an interesting question. Let me think about that.
I get paid the big
I'm
bucks.
not completely enamored. I don't think it's the worst thing ever. I'll go. I'm at like a 6.
Okay.
3.
You're at a 3.
I'm at a 3. I'm at a 3 because, first of all, who's going to travel all the way out west? I mean, your fan base here, this is got to be upset with this because only the ultra, I guess, rich people who can afford to travel and go to those games are going to be able to go. It's not like getting in a car and driving to Bloomington or going to West Lafayette or even up to Madison or East Lansing or no, this changes so much more about Big Ten than just football. I can't imagine volleyball, baseball, basketball, all these other sports. I just think this has a devastating effect and impact on how kids view competition. and we still don't know if you're going to add more teams or if you're going to cut the Big Ten and the East Division, the West Division. That's what makes sense. And if they do that, you're not going to see those teams very often come to Columbus and Ann Arbor to play in the first place. It doesn't seem to me.
Which then makes it, what's the point, right? Well, yeah, I can, yeah, it's.
I still like stirrup socks. I don't like the designated hitter. I don't like aluminum ball bats. And I absolutely don't want a ghost runner in the 10th inning to start out at second base if he didn't earn that. So I'm a traditionalist. I like the Big Ten just the way it is.
Yeah.
And get off his lawn. That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry, fellas, we're trying to play with the mics and keep everybody.
Oh, and now
we're playing with the alignment here. We're trying to get everybody set. There we go.
Well, I got to get realigned like football, like college sports.
We do. All right, Gibby, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Sorry for the feedback issues.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, I was hearing it bad at first, but you've cleaned it up. So
well, if I mute Mr. Folk's microphone, then it cuts out the feedback. So
by the way, Gibby, tell us what you think about. You're the Ohio State guy now at Press Pros Magazine. We're all delighted to have. The early returns on you have been very positive. People like what you're writing. We're delighted to have you. And tell me what you're looking forward to about going to Ohio State and writing Buckeye football.
Just I got into this in the first place because, you love sports and you love being in places to see it. And I still love going to a high school football game when there's 500 people there, and if it's a good game, but there's to be in the big arena, so to speak, to just to experience some of that more. I've experienced it some in my career, but not a lot, and so that's a thing I'm just kind of looking forward to, and going to some of these other venues, some of these stadiums that you've seen on TV a million times, and to get to go be there in some of those places is something I'm looking forward to. This is not a team covering something at this level is not something where you get to know the players and coaches too much. It's not that personal. So that's not what really attracts me. It's just more about like just kind of being there and seeing that and experiencing that. I think that's kind of what I'm looking for. And, those road trips and that'll be fun. Just getting there, getting out in the car. I don't mind that. I'm looking forward to that. So that's kind of the thing that attracts me.
Well, they don't let you get to know the players anymore. So
no,
it's not possible. So
to have you, and Bruce, before we get away tonight, we got to say something about our new sponsor, the Orthopedic Associates of Southwest Ohio, who join us here for the Monday Night Huddle. They deliver compassionate expert care for the full spectrum of orthopedic conditions, and they are conveniently located up and down I-75 from Cincinnati to Sydney and from Greenville to Springfield. I don't know how many different offices they have, 7, 8, 9, but certainly the one we know best is here in Sydney. That's the Orthopedic Associates of Southwest Ohio, Dr. Matt Heckler up in Sydney. So we thank them for their support and coming on board with us this year.
Gibby, thanks for joining us tonight, and we'll see you down the road.
Yeah, happy to be here anytime.
Well, I guess we look forward next week to you having that microphone issue fixed.
I believe that's your microphone issue because it's yours that I've been muting.
Well, I don't know that we're doing anything different. It's the same computer. It's the same laptop that we've done this with for 3 years, and I haven't done anything different. So got some people checking in. Been a while. Keith Brooks, good to be back living in Ohio. Keith, it's good to hear from you. I certainly always look forward to your comments on Facebook. So it's good to have you out there. Vic Whiting, yes, sir. Many years ago, he always put together a competitive team. That was Adelphia St. John. He won a lot of games there consecutively.
So with that, we will thank you all for watching tonight, and we will be back again next Monday with another edition of the Monday Huddle. Games that we have our eye on for this weekend in Central Ohio. We haven't committed yet, but we're looking at possibly Olentangy Berlin playing on the road at Olentangy Orange. We are also looking at Hilliard Bradley on the road at Hilliard Darby. We have Hilliard Davidson playing host to Grove City and their outstanding quarterback Matthew Pappas. We've got Watterson at Dublin Scioto and Geron Stokes and the Dublin Kaufman Shamrocks off a big win at Toledo, I think Walsh Jesuit or Toledo St. John's Jesuit, rather. They are playing host to Centerville, so we may see the Elks and the Rocks on Friday night at Kaufman. And of course, in the Press Pros original viewing area or coverage area, we have Fort Loramie playing host to Versailles. We have Coldwater playing host to Bell Fountain. Any other games that are in your on your possibles list for Friday night over there?
Question: this is a probable. We're going to be there for Piqua and Vandalia Butler. I think that's a very interesting game in the MVL, and it's going to say a lot about both those teams. It's also going to say a lot about the MVL. Because there's some people who want to know if there's going to be good competition between now and week 10 up and down I-75 from Sydney to Butler. And then we're going to know a lot more after Friday night.
Well, we certainly appreciate everybody who accessed our pages over the weekend. We particularly want to shout out our friends at Pickerington Central who were very responsible for some frequent shares of the Tigers win under Jeff Lamonaco, their first-year head coach, although he's been their longtime defensive coordinator under Jay Sherritt. And you guys helped push us to a record first weekend page views. And so we appreciate everybody who follows us on Instagram, and you can do that by searching at Press Pros Magazine. Twitter is at Press Pros Mag. Our Facebook pages, our social channels, our sometimes daily, sometimes every other day, lowdown videos. All the content at Press Pros is free. We do it because we love it. We really appreciate the feedback from you guys. So respond to us through our social channels. Leave us a message on any of those. You can also email for the Reader Speaks. What's the email address for the Reader Speaks, Sonny?
Just send it to, just click on the reply link there in the story, and that'll come. That's all you got to do. There is no address that you have to remember. You can send it to Sonny at PressProsMagazine.com if you want to, but just click on to respond or to reply, and that'll come across automatically.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching tonight. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and we will see you on the pages of PressProsMagazine.com throughout the week and on the weekend.